Are you looking for the best camera for professional photography? In this video we will look at some of the 10 best camera on the market. Before we get started with our video, starting at number 1. Nikon Z9. Nikon has struggled for years to compete head-to-head with Sony and Canon. Those two companies had a head start with mirrorless cameras. That's why the Nikon Z9 is surprising to many. Nikon's newest flagship professional camera blows the competition out of the water. The Z9 has groundbreaking features and image quality. So what makes the Z9 the best professional camera? Let's start with the frame rate. Not long ago, many thought 24 frames per second was impressive. But the Z9 can shoot a whopping 120 frames per second in still photos, not video. With autofocus, Nikon developed a deep learning algorithm. It tracks various subjects, from people and animals to vehicles. It even combines 3D tracking and subject detection, automatically following fast-moving objects. Of course, the Nikon Z9 is also a competent professional camera for video. It has a max video resolution of 8K. And what's even more impressive? It can shoot 12-bit RAW footage in camera without overheating. Its footage is so crisp that you can grab 33MP still frames from it. The downside of the Z9 is that it's a little bit on the bulky side. The body alone is 2.9 pounds. That's a lot of weight, considering it's a full-frame mirrorless camera. But then again, its robust build makes it a formidable professional camera. It can brave the elements well with its weather sealing. At number 2. Nikon Z7 II. The Nikon Z7 II is the successor of the groundbreaking Z7, which Nikon released in 2018. The Z7 was an impressive mirrorless camera. It had a few inadequacies that some professional photographers didn't like. For instance, it didn't have a dual card slot. That would have allowed people to back up their files in camera. Thankfully, Nikon listened to the consumers and addressed the inadequacies of the Z7. Now, the Z7 II has a dual card slot and boasts 4K/60p frames per second video, albeit still cropped. This full-frame mirrorless camera also allows accurate eye tracking in video mode. This makes it a favorite among run-and-gun filmmakers. Of course, Nikon didn't stop with the dual card slots and the 1.08x crop 4K. The Z7 II lets you combine up to 10 multiple exposures into a single frame in camera. And can go the traditional route of long exposure photography. It lets you keep the shutter open for up to 900 seconds for a single shot. You'll also enjoy the Z7 II's focus shift shooting if you're into macro photography. It takes several photos and automatically adjusts focus incrementally each time. You can then edit and combine them into one sharp image from the foreground to the background. At number 3. Nikon D850. Most people these days dismiss DSLR cameras in favor of mirrorless options. But some photographers still love using an optical viewfinder. And others don't want to sacrifice performance and quality. If you're one of those, you need to look at the Nikon D850. Nikon released this iconic DSLR camera in 2018. But it remains one of the best non-mirrorless options for professionals. It only has a mechanical viewing system. But it has features that make it highly competitive with high-end mirrorless cameras. First, the D850 has an excellent 45.7MP resolution. That places it on the level with the Nikon Z7 II and the Z9. Its backside illuminated sensor lets you shoot in low light with minimal noise. It also doesn't have a low-pass filter, allowing you to create tack-sharp images. Unlike the Nikon Z7 II, released in 2020, the D850 can capture 4K video without a crop. Unfortunately, its autofocus in video mode is a bit slow. But if you like focusing manually, you wouldn't have to worry about its slow autofocus in the first place. One true advantage of the D850 over mirrorless cameras? It can accept older lenses without needing an adapter. Do you want a newer camera but don't want to replace your DSLR glass? This professional camera is the most logical choice. We know that DSLR cameras are starting to feel a bit passé. But forget that the D850 has no optical viewfinder for a second. It's still a capable camera. And it can beat most modern cameras when it comes to image quality. At number 4. Nikon D780. The Nikon D780 is a bit of an anomaly. Nikon's competitors were releasing new mirrorless cameras in 2020. And the Japanese camera company decided to launch this full-frame DSLR camera body. It may seem illogical for Nikon to have done that. But read on to find out why you might find this excellent camera indispensable. The Nikon D780 is the updated version of the much-loved Nikon D750, released in 2014. On the surface, it seems like a regular entry-level full-frame camera. It has a standard 24MP sensor. But the Nikon D780 is, in fact, a hybrid camera that has improved autofocus for video. If you own a DSLR, especially a Nikon one, you know how unusable the autofocus is when shooting video. It hunts for the subject a lot, and the transition from one focus point to the next is jerky. The Nikon D780 allows you to focus accurately and smoothly as if using a mirrorless camera. And the best part about it is that you can work with your existing DSLR lenses to use it. The D7800 has upgraded video capabilities. But besides that, it has many photography features for the modern pro photographer. For instance, it has built-in creative filters. This includes a tilt-shift effect. Plus, it lets you combine many exposures in camera. It also lets you create focus stacking shots. That lets you create sharp photos from the background to the foreground. So what is the Nikon D870 then? It's designed for professional photographers and serious enthusiasts. It's for those who love the experience of a DSLR but long for the autofocus AF capabilities of mirrorless options. It may seem simple at first glance, but it's proof that DSLR cameras still have plenty to offer. At number 5. Canon EOS R3. Canon cameras have long been a favorite among photojournalists, wildlife, and sports photographers. That's due to their performance even in high-stress environments. The brand's mirrorless camera release, the EOS R3, continues that tradition. But it has new features that make shooting photos faster and more intuitive. The Canon EOS R3 has an impressive 1053 autofocus points. It can accurately detect all subjects, from humans to animals. It also has an eye control AF. It automatically selects the focus points by following your eye movements. Surprisingly enough, the eye control AF technology has been around since 1998. And it was available in some high-end film cameras. But this is the first time Canon has integrated it into a digital camera. We wonder why it took that long. But we're excited about its potential. It makes changing focus hands-free and more intuitive. The Canon EOS R3 has 5-axis in-body image stabilization (IBIS). It steadies your camera while taking photos at low shutter speeds. This feature is perfect for those who always work in terrible lighting conditions. They can be photojournalists or even event photographers. When it comes to continuous shooting, using a mechanical shutter, the Canon EOS R3 can take 12 frames per second. And it takes up to 30 frames per second electronically. But it can fire up to 195 frames in custom mode, beating Nikon's Z9's impressive 120 frames per second. Of course, we can't forget this camera's video features. It's the perfect hybrid camera, capable of shooting 60 frames per second in 6K and 120 frames per second in 4K. And unlike most mirrorless options, the R3 has a suppressed rolling shutter distortion. It significantly reduces the jello effect when capturing fast movements. Unfortunately, the EOS R3 only has a 24MP sensor. Most of its competitors' offerings feature at least double the resolution. But despite that, the R3's excellent features can still outperform other options. At number 6. Canon EOS R5. For those needing a high-resolution camera, the Canon EOS R5 is a better option than the R3. It boasts a 45MP sensor which is almost twice as large as its R3 counterpart. It also has most of the features of the R3 but at a fraction of the size, weight, and price. Like the R3, the Canon EOS R5 has an advanced focusing system. It can automatically track both fast-moving humans and animals. And it also has 1053 autofocus zones that cover your entire shooting area. With its shooting speed, the Canon EOS R5 can take 12 frames per second with a mechanical shutter. But you can go up to 20 frames per second using the electronic shutter that allows you to shoot silently. What makes the R5 genuinely shine is its video capabilities. It has a max video resolution of 8K uncropped for up to 29.97p. In 4K mode, it can shoot up to 120p for capturing slow-motion footage. Are you a sports or wildlife photographer who requires shooting fast? The EOS R5 may be the best professional camera for you. Despite being more expensive, the Canon EOS R3 doesn't have plenty of advantages over the R5. And when it comes to the video department, the R5 even outshines the R3. At number 7. Canon EOS R. Are you a freshly minted professional photographer? Do you need a reliable full-frame mirrorless camera? Consider the Canon EOS R. Canon released it in 2018. But its features are still competitive with the newest releases. The Canon EOS R is the first camera in the R line. It has won many professional photographers' hearts upon its release. This impressive device has a 30MP sensor with an ISO sensitivity range between 100 and 40,000. So it produces great image quality and works well in low light. Canon claims the EOS R has the world's fastest autofocus, clocking in at 0.5 seconds. At least during its release. It features 5,655 AF points covering 100% of the vertical and 88% of the horizontal. One of the Canon EOS R's unique features? It allows you to drag the focus point across the screen to let the camera know where it should focus next. That's a helpful solution if you photograph difficult-to-track, fast-moving subjects. The Canon EOS R's max video resolution is 4K at 29.97p. But it also lets you record at 60 frames in Full HD, 1920 by 1080. Sure, it doesn't have the best specs when it comes to video. But if you don't use slow-motion shots all the time, what this device offers is still impressive. Oh, and did we tell you that it allows you to record video simultaneously while taking pictures? Now that's one convenient function we all wish every camera has. Apart from all its features, its affordability makes the Canon EOS R a true gem. You can save some money by buying this camera. Then you can now invest that in quality Canon lenses you need for various occasions. At number 8. Sony A1. Sony has been a leader in mirrorless professional cameras for years. And the Sony A1 is a culmination of the brand's imaging technology prowess. The A1 is a high-performance workhorse packed with features. It makes shooting in any situation a breeze. It's easy to capture anything from creative portraits of people to pets and animals in the wild. Sony A1 has a 50MP sensor. It has an ISO range between 50 and 104,000. This device even features pixel shift multi-shooting. It lets you combine 16 RAW files to create one super high-resolution image. The only other options on this list that has a similar functionality? The Fujifilm medium format cameras. You can shoot continuously with the Sony A1 for up to 30 frames per second. That's pretty impressive. It's a high-resolution sensor that has to process large files quickly. That's why sports and wildlife photographers love it. They can finally take pictures fast. And they can crop their shots in post without worrying about losing image quality. The Sony Alpha 1's max video resolution is 8K at 30p without crop and 120p in 4K. Sony has one of the fastest autofocus systems on the market. The A1 can make up to 120 AF and auto exposure calculations per second. It ensures you don't miss crucial moments. The Sony Alpha 1's max video resolution is 8K at 30p without crop and 120p in 4K. Those who use autofocus for video will be happy. You can track your subject's eyes in real time and change the focus seamlessly. The Sony A1 is more than $1,000 more expensive than the Nikon Z9, its closest competitor. But the 50MP resolution, high dynamic range, and accurate autofocus system make it all worth it. At number 9. Sony A7 IV. Is the Sony A1 too expensive for you? Don't worry, because you have a competitive alternative in the form of the A7 IV. It's not only significantly cheaper, it also has a 61MP resolution. It's currently the highest for any full-frame mirrorless option. Like the A1, the A7 IV also has pixel shift multi-shooting. After combining 16 RAW files using this feature, you end up with one large image that exceeds 200 MP. This is incredible image quality from the pixel shift functionality. It makes the A7 IV perfect for those who love creating large prints from their photos. The Sony A7 IV can only shoot 10 frames per second instead of the A1's 30 frames per second. But in most shooting situations, 10 frames per second is more than adequate to capture crucial moments. It also has 567 autofocus points. And it uses phase detection for accurate focusing even when shooting fast subjects. The Sony A7 IV doesn't have 8K. But it has excellent 4K capability that lets it record 24, 25, and 30p. At Full HD, 1920 by 1080, it can capture slow motion up to 120p. If you don't need a specialty camera like the Sony A1, the A7 IV is a solid investment. The image quality from its 60MP sensor makes a lot of difference. That's especially true if you love capturing intricate details in photos. At number 10. Sony A7C. Sony offers tons of mirrorless options for a wide range of photographers. Of course, it has its flagship A1 for professional photography. But it also has the Sony A6600 for beginners and enthusiasts. But what if you're an enthusiast ready to dive into the professional world? Well, Sony still has you covered with the A7C. Technically, Sony built the A7C for content creators. They designed a more user-friendly package for those who create high-quality videos. But this all-around camera can go beyond the requirements of its target market. It can go head-to-head with other professional options. Sony calls the A7C the smallest and lightest full-frame camera. Even though it has a large sensor, they designed its camera body like an APS-C camera. That way, it doesn't feel too intimidating to most content creators. They're used to using crop sensor cameras. Despite the target market of the A7C, it has all the features you need for professional photography. It has a resolution of 24.2 MP and can shoot up to 10 frames per second. This is fast for this type of camera. The Sony A7C also has real-life auto tracking. So you don't have to worry about missing focus on moving subjects. Its autofocus system tracks the eyes of humans and animals. So you can keep shooting without fumbling with your focus button. The A7C features a 4K video with no crop. Perfect for content creators. And it can record up to 30p. In HD mode, it can capture slow motion up to 120p. And, of course, it has a vari-angle monitor to make it easy to shoot both selfies at low angle and high angle shots. But what makes the A7C genuinely appealing is the price. Its affordability makes it perfect for anyone who wants to switch from APS-C to full frame. Its user-friendly configuration doesn't make it too intimidating. And its state-of-the-art features make it ideal for professional use.